wish my colleagues in Women Entrepreneurs of Saskatchewan the best of luck with the technical issues that they're having. We love them dearly here at GoForth. And I know that nobody heard Jackie's wonderful intro, but I'll see if I can do it justice and get the conference rolling here, or as they say in WestJet, we'll get this Boeing going. So first of all, welcome to all of you, and thank you so much for participating today in what is always a great webinar that we offer, we being GoForth Institute, offer as a partner of Women Entrepreneurs of Saskatchewan. We've been partnered with Women Entrepreneurs of Saskatchewan for many years. We've done a lot of things, very innovative things together, and one of them is this webinar, which is designed to kind of introduce you to the state of entrepreneurship in Canada, and more particularly Western Canada. We're from Alberta, so we're neighbors next door, and we'll share some of the more interesting facets of entrepreneurship with you today. And in a few moments, I'll go through the agenda so that you can have a sense of what we're doing. In terms of timing, I'm hoping to be through the material in about half an hour. And I really want to open up the floor to questions, and the way that we do that typically is for you to jot them down. And then at the end, when we enter the question and answer session, if you can write your questions in chat, and then everybody can kind of participate that way, and I will answer as best I can in the time that we have remaining. As far as watching the presentation, and you get copies of any of the slides that I have today, Women Entrepreneurs of Saskatchewan will be posting that on their website. We have a PDF version of our slide handouts, and that'll be available in a few days on their website. You're more than happy to visit and bring them down. If you need them sooner than that, shoot me an email, leslie@goforthinstitute.com, and I will send you a PDF copy. So you can see in the bio that's been dropped in chat, I have kind of an interesting background. I started life as a professor of entrepreneurship, and then there was that day where I decided, wow, here I am teaching something at the universities here in Calgary. I've actually never done entrepreneurship. So the hypocrisy of teaching something I had never actually done really took hold of me. And but fortunately, I had some interesting research experience when I was a professor that gave me an idea of what kind of business it was that I wanted to start. And anyhow, I'll kind of explain a little bit more about what the research was and how GoForth came to be in a few moments. But let me just briefly tell you that my journey into entrepreneurship was successful. I've been an entrepreneur of 2 different companies now for 8 years. We started GoForth Institute. That spun off a small software company where we build a mobile app in entrepreneurship that's being used in colleges and school districts across the country now. And funny, I'm going back to teaching. Both of these companies are running on their own, and I want to go back into the classroom now, not as an entrepreneur, well, not as a professor, but as a professor who has actually done and survived entrepreneurship. So I come from that background, and just know that I'm super approachable. So if you have a question that you're shy, you don't want to ask in front of the room full of people today, then please reach out and call me or email me. I'm happy to respond. Okay, so here's the agenda for today. I do want to cover some interesting facts about entrepreneurship. I want to cover not only some national things, but some Western Canadian facts. I want to talk about the factors associated with success. This is what came out of my research and the research of many entrepreneurship academics around the world. These success factors are consistent regardless of where we do the research. So it's important that you know what these factors are so you can focus on them. We're going to cover top 6 reasons why businesses go out of business. kind of important to learn where are the major areas of failure so that you can hope to avoid them by building skills in those areas. Skill sets matter. I'm going to share my favorite book in entrepreneurship, my all-time favorite book, the author of which talks about skill sets specifically in business and why it's important to develop them. We'll talk a little bit about GoForth training, what it is we developed, how many people have taken it in the last 8 years, and what their factors, what their success outcome factors are. And then I want you to go away having learned 6 of our skills that we teach in our program. So at the end of the day, you're going to learn some things. I'm hopeful that the benefit for you of sitting through the next half an hour of information as it's coming to you is that you will have some practical skills today that you'll be able to apply in your businesses to be more successful this year. So with that, we're going to get rolling here. One of my favorite entrepreneurs is Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett was in the news recently, of course, being one of the top 10 billionaires in the world. What I like about Warren Buffett and a lot of his compatriots is that they are going to donate the majority of their wealth back to the world to solve a lot of the world's problems. But Warren has like those of us that are teaching entrepreneurship, he says, most entrepreneurs really don't know what they don't know until it's a little too late. And so, investing in yourselves to develop your skills is a really important aspect of not becoming one of the failure statistics. So, entrepreneurship fast facts, Canadian, okay? These are Canadian statistics. If you're interested in knowing where I get these facts, I'm happy to put that in an email and send you, but it's basically a combination of Statistics Canada, as well as some publications from Industry Canada. The government counts the number of businesses that kind of enter and exit every year. And it's interesting to know that in the last 25 years, we are consistently starting about 130,000 businesses a year. I used to know what that was per minute, and I want to guess that it's like half a business per minute. I'm not quite sure about that. I'll have to check my notes, but just know that 130,000 businesses start. What's interesting is that 99.8 of these businesses, so nearly all of them, are smaller companies under 500 employees. So really, when you think about a large company in Canada that has over 500 employees, that's only 0.2 of 1% of all businesses in Canada. So that should suggest to you that you are part of a community of smaller companies that in fact make up the majority of businesses in Canada. Interestingly, those of you that are running small, or what we call affectionately micro businesses, you're half of the business population in Canada. So over half. So 55% of businesses in Canada today have less than 5 employees. So be proud of that fact. You're not alone. I know entrepreneurship feels lonely. It certainly did for me in the early startup days. And yet you have to know you're part of this great big community of small businesses that are the engines of economic growth in the country. Why? Because you hire people. As a matter of fact, you hire collectively, and I should say we, because my company is under 5 employees as well. We hire more people in this country than large companies do, and yet that's not usually what you hear about in the news. You hear about layoffs, you hear about, giant companies hiring, giant companies firing. What about the engines of growth? What about the micro entrepreneurs out there? They're actually the ones that are doing the hiring in this country. Here's the failure statistics. Now, these are kind of generalized because depending on what statistic you read, it's a little bit higher, a little bit lower. But typically, a third of businesses are gone in the first 2 years. Why are they gone? Well, bad timing, bad product, bad pricing, bad promotion, just didn't just didn't have it together. A third of them are gone in a couple of years. If you make it to the second year, another 50% are going to fail by the fifth year. The reason for that second, we call that a bimodal distribution for those of you that are, interested in statistics. But it just says, look, there's this hump of people that fail in the first 2 years, and then there's a second hump of people, the second mode, that fail around the fifth year. And the reason for that is that by the fifth year of business operation, the skill set required to grow the company from where it is today to where you'd like it to be is actually a different skill set than the one required in the first 5 years of business. So the focus changes from an entrepreneurial type skill set to a managerial type skill set. And entrepreneurs, and I count myself as one of them now, I don't know if you know, but we're kind of control freakish around, we like to control things. We like to have our hands in every aspect of the business because this was our baby. We created it, we gave birth to it, we raised it. And what do you mean I got to hand over the reins to other people? And oh, by the way, share my vision. So a lot of entrepreneurs can't make that transition, and they end up running the businesses into the ground around the fifth year. So that's why that failure statistic is there. Success factors. So I spent my life when I was a professor for 15 years researching, well, what makes the difference between a really successful small company in Canada and one that fails? And my findings were similar to the findings of researchers that were looking at this question all over the world. And here are the top two factors. So if you have experience in a previous business, previous experience in a similar business to the one that you're intending to run or the one that you're running, then you have ticked off one of those boxes that might improve your chances of success. I always tell people, why don't you learn on somebody else's dime? Learn what they do well, learn what they don't do well, and then leave. When you have a better idea of the business model that might actually be successful. And of course, the second factor associated with success is training. So those people that access small business training either through a local resource like Women Entrepreneurs of Saskatchewan, or they go to college and learn it, or they go to an adult education program at night, or they go off to university and do a degree in business, any type of small business training will improve, and I mean significantly improve the chances of success. So we're talking from a potential small business success rate of about 30%, 30 to 40% making it to the fifth year. The chances improve, they double actually, they go up to about 80 to 90% if people have these two things in place. So if you don't have either of those in place, don't panic. There's ways, and we're going to talk about how to improve your chances. Top 6 reasons for failure. These are in no particular order. So don't look at it as, well, the number one reason for failure is marketing strategy. It's just one of the reasons for failure. So poor marketing strategy. Well, what do we mean by marketing strategy? Well, there's a combination of wrong product, wrong price, wrong market, wrong distribution strategy. There's lots of examples out there if you want to search for, why did this company fail? I can think of the new Coke or Coors beer that got into the spring market water, and it was, it's just a disaster. So poor marketing strategy is just one of the top 6 reasons for failure. Bad location being another one. Hard to find, there's no parking, it's a rundown location. That very quickly translates into people's perceptions that this is not a successful company, and they tend to stop doing business with that company. Poor website. Now, about a year ago, you might not know this, but I'll share with you only because we have a company that's a software company, and we went through the development of a new website. Did you know that Google punishes websites now that are not mobile friendly? So let's say you had a website that you designed, 4 or 5 years ago. It's been running just fine, but it doesn't work really well on a mobile device, either a tablet or a smartphone. It looks great on a computer, but then it doesn't shrink properly. It looks kind of jumbled when you move it to a mobile device. Google actually punishes you now. So you get shoved to the bottom of any return when somebody has done a search for your type of company. They actually push you down in the returns. So what Google is saying is, if you don't have a mobile-friendly website, we don't want to talk to you. And we don't want to share your website with our customers because it's going to be a crappy experience for them. So if that's the type of website you have, know that you're in peril. and we'll talk about what you can do to improve that. Uncompetitive pricing. So not being willing or able to adapt and adjust to changing market conditions will often result in business failure faster than anything. A lot of entrepreneurs come to market with a product where they believe they being the entrepreneur, knows the price that people are willing to pay. Well, if you haven't done any market research, good luck with that, because you're a market of one. You do not represent your customers unless you've spoken to them through market research. And I say this because I was one of them. I had a price in mind for our small business training when we launched in 2009. But fortunately, I did some research. I hired a market research company. We did a little project, and we found out that, the value associated with training is a lot different in the minds of my customers than it is for me, a professor who, really strongly values education. So I had to adjust my whole business model to a price that reflected value for our customer, and that was a great learning for me. So anyhow, these are the, let me get to bad management here. Or where am I? I've lost my place. Sorry, I didn't talk about poor customer service. Poor customer service is really fascinating, particularly now in the era of social media. Social media has turned the unhappy customer into the most prolific poster ever in social media. So if people are unhappy with their service, they're actually going to tell 3 times more people about that unhappy experience than they are if it's positive. So the takeaway there is every customer has to go away happy, or they can do some pretty serious damage to your business. Okay, bad management. So I talked about why companies fail. A lot of them fail within the first 5 years because the entrepreneur really can't make the transition to managing and leading a team of people. So, that is something that you need to invest in. If you're at that mark where your business is growing, you're somewhere between 3 years and 7 years, your skill set is going to be stretched, and you really need to seek out some assistance in developing those managerial skills. So those were the 6, call them, top 6 reasons for business failure. And at in a few minutes, we're going to address each of those with a skill that we do train in our training program. Okay, Michael Gerber, this is like a shout out to a book that's, honestly, I think it's over 20 years now, 20 years old. So I'm dating myself. But it's my absolute favorite book. It's a great read. It's like 100 pages. Sit down with a glass of wine one night and have a howl. He's a really funny guy. He was a drug addict. Not a drug addict. He was kind of a druggie from the 60s and 70s. But he built a very, very successful company. And to me, he explains why entrepreneurs are so crazy. And he says, look, they've got this skill set. They might have a skill set like you can style and cut hair, you could work on cars, you can paint houses. That's called a technical skill set. And he says what's interesting is that entrepreneurs have this crazy belief that skill set is the same as the skill set they need to run a business around it. And the example he gives in his book is somebody who's an incredible baker. They bake cookies, they bake pies, they bake muffins. They're amazing. And they go, we should open a bakery. And he goes, that's the crazy part, is that they don't realize that the skill sets to do that, to run a bakery business, are entirely different than the skill set of, I'm a great baker. And he said, quite frankly, that's what's wrong with entrepreneurs. If they realize that they have to develop a different skill set, the failure rate would drop to a very low rate. We wouldn't have 70% fail, we'd have 70% succeed. So anyhow, if that book is available, I think it's available on Amazon. I have no relationship, I'm not promoting here, but, but it's just a really good book, and one of my favorites for entrepreneurship. So why GoForth? Well, we decided, look, there needs to be a way to improve the odds of success by utilizing the factor of success, one of those two factors associated with success, that we can actually create. So that was an entrepreneurship education program. And it took about kind of 3 years to get through the development of GoForth. I won't bore you with all the details of how we did it, but basically the content of the training didn't come from a textbook, because I didn't believe as a professor that we needed to teach theory. I wanted people to learn the skills that would help them succeed. And so I took off on the road and I interviewed, with the help of some other researchers, I interviewed 200 really successful entrepreneurs, and I asked them one question. And the questions were, what was the difference between success and failure for you? What were the skills that made the difference between success and failure for you? And they told us. So we came home with a list of skills, about just under 300 of them, and we created a training program around those skills that we called the 100 Essential Small Business Skills Training Program. We actually started in classroom. The internet, of course, it was there, but video really wasn't an option. But over time, we watched the rise of the mobile device. We watched the rise of video, streaming video over the internet, and I said to all the people in our organization, that's where we need to be. We need to move with our people, and our people don't want to be in a classroom. They want education to come to them wherever they are, whenever they want to do it. So we left the classroom, we invested in a video technology program, and then, as you've heard, off to the mobile app land, where we got into the software side of things. But we developed GoForth to be Canada's first online entrepreneurship training program, and it really teaches 100 skills in all different aspects of business, from marketing to finance, accounting, human resources, law, operations management, strategic growth, and I'll add government compliance, which is one of the most important places where you need to focus your attention as an entrepreneur. I know that we all love to sell and we all love to engage with people. However, if you're not the administrator, then you hire an administrator to keep you coloring within the lines of the federal and provincial governments that have set down rules for our operation. What does our training look like? Well, it's delivered through 30 20-minute videos, and we have a whole bunch of really interesting downloadable materials, from a 550-page textbook that goes along with it, to exercises and quizzes, business plan templates, and worksheets. The worksheets are really an important part of the training. Entrepreneurs complete them as they watch each video, and then they kind of accumulate into a business plan when you're done. So if you really feel like digging in and work hard on the development of a business plan, then the worksheets are available for you to do that. So that's kind of what the training looks like that we deliver. Who's it for? Well, it's for anybody who is in that micro business stage, and that can be pre-startup, startup, or early stage growth. We teach a little bit of that managerial skill set that I was referring to, that you need to develop in order to get over that 5th year failure hump in Canada. But the majority of the content is for those that are wanting to start, have just started, or are growing a business and they simply don't have a business background and they want to get their business skill set developed really quickly. So what you see here, micro business owners, different stages of growth, doesn't matter what your educational background is. Typically, less than 10 employees and under $2 million a year in revenue is where the majority of our clients come from. The good news is that, and this slide needs to be updated, last year we just crossed the 10,000 entrepreneur mark in Canada, and we follow people. We don't follow them physically, we follow their success through research. And this is how we're coming up with our outcomes measures of, are you still in business? You took our training in 2010, tell us a little bit about your journey, and we follow every year. And this is how we're able to claim that the majority of people who have taken our training way back in 2010 and forward, 2010 and forward, are still in business today. So what we're saying is the training works. It does improve the odds of success of small business owners. Just to end off my part of the presentation here, I want to spend about a minute on each one of these top 6 reasons for failure by teaching you one of the skills in our training program that actually addresses those failure rates. So let's start with marketing strategy. So what is a marketing strategy? Well, it is a coordinated strategy that's made up of 4 different what we call sub-strategies. So product, price, promotion, and place. Each product or service you offer to the market will actually have its own marketing strategy that's targeted to a particular group of buyers. So it's important for you to understand the characteristics of those buyers and then develop a strategy that will meet the needs of those buyers. So here's an example of a friend of mine in Calgary that just started a company that sells, it's an online company that sells non-toxic baby products through her online website. So she sources her products all over the world. She'll warehouse them in Calgary. She distributes them online, and her marketing strategy really involves choosing the right products to offer. She has to price her products competitively, and she needs to promote her products on social media, because social media is actually where her buyers get their information and kind of develop their relationships with businesses. So she is crafting a marketing strategy for each one of the categories of products that she's selling. If you're in a service business, there's still such a thing as a marketing strategy, but we replace some of the characteristics of a service business with what you see here for the product business. So obviously there's no product, there's a service, but there's still ways to develop a proper marketing strategy, and we talk about that in our training. Bad location. So how do we combat that one of those top 6 failures? Well, we teach location analysis. So here's an example of just a chart of, if you had 3 different locations to choose from, how would you evaluate each one? Well, here's an example of developing an analysis that looks at different factors that are important to your customers and the weight that each one of those factors would get. So for example, accessibility is 2 times more important to your customers than where's your competition located. Okay, so there's an example of how to do a very logical and quantitative analysis around location versus, oh, I just like that location. I think this is a really good spot to put down a 5-year lease and a deposit. So it's important to know that that analysis is available. We talked about poor website, and we talked about what Google is doing to really to promote mobility and mobile websites on their search engine. But it is important when you set out to design a website or redesign a website that you do work with a professional. It's really hard to do these ourselves. I know there's great opportunities to do inexpensive websites. However, if you spend a limited amount of money on a professional, they will be able to give you a website that's not only mobile friendly and fast, but it can actually lead people to a purchase decision. And that's what you want in your website. So my suggestion with people is always to go look for a professional, reasonably priced, that can help develop a website that does what you want it to do, which is obviously to increase sales. Managing quality. So how do you prevent bad customer service? Well, in our business, we have a service standard book that everybody in our organization reads and they sign off on. And they promise me that this is how our customers are going to be treated. Whether it's an email that comes in, whether it's a phone call that comes in, whether it's an interaction over the web, we have service standards. And everybody in my organization knows them. And I will monitor to make sure that our staff are achieving those service standards. And we make sure that all the standards are being met. And that's a happy customer, that's a happy company. Pricing strategy. So I mentioned that uncompetitive pricing was one of the top 6 failures for most businesses. And here's an example of just 3 different strategies you could consider. You probably know them. You may not know the name of them. So let me just go through them really quickly. So cost-based. Cost-based pricing says, look, here's our cost. Let's mark up the final price by some percentage. So retail clothing is a great example where there's usually call it 100% markup. Market-based pricing says, hey, let's charge what the market is actually willing to bear. I've had a conversation with consultants over the years about, well, I think I'm going to charge $100 an hour. I go, really? Your clients are making multi-million-dollar decisions based on the information that you're going to provide. Why don't you charge what they will bear, which is probably more than $100 an hour? So, there's just an example of understanding what the value is of the information that you're providing. So what's the value of the decision that somebody might make on information that you're providing? Maybe market-based pricing is not where you want to be. Maybe it is. It's just an option to consider, as we did at GoForth. We wanted to charge what people were willing to pay and where they saw the value in our training. So we adjusted our pricing strategy from cost-based to market-based pricing. Competition-based pricing just says you'll do an evaluation of what your competitors are charging, and you'll either charge the same, more, or less, depending on the value of what you're offering to your customers. Okay, so there's just 3 examples, and there's more that we talk about in our training of, oh, okay, so that's how you figure out what to charge for your product or service. And finally, the last one, I'm not going to go through this, like all the bullet points on this slide, but basically the takeaway here is that it takes a really special skill set to become a leader and a manager of people. And I've said twice in the webinar so far that entrepreneurs have a hard time transitioning sometimes from entrepreneurship to management and to being a leader of people. So we talk in our course about what are some of the managerial processes that need to be in place before that business takes a stab or a run at growth. If these managerial practices are not in place and the business is growing, it's going to topple. And by that I mean the foundation of managerial practice is not stable enough on which the business can grow. So the pause button needs to be hit while the entrepreneur and the management team develop those skills so that they can actually take the business to a higher level. By higher level, I mean great success in revenue and contributing to the Canadian economy through hiring more people. So anyhow, ladies and gentlemen, sorry, I'm 4 minutes over time. That's kind of a nutshell of here's who we are. We've talked about different small business facts in Canada. We've looked at success and failure factors, and I wanted to share the top 6 failure factors with you and corresponding skills that we teach in our training program. As I mentioned, we are partnered with Women Entrepreneurs of Saskatchewan, And until Jackie can correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's until the end of January, might be into February, that we do have a special promotion for any women entrepreneurs of Saskatchewan attendee, or any attendee today who would like $100 off the cost of our training. Our training is $195 for the first year. That gives you unlimited access to the videos and all the content material. So take $100 off. It's only going to cost you $95 if you use the code. The code is GOWES 2017. So that's GOWES 2017. And Jackie, I'm going to let you open up the floor. Actually, I'm not going to change the mode here. I'm not going to change it to, just in case those of you, who are attending don't have a mic, I want to have a Q&A session. So if you have to leave, I understand that, and I really thank you for your participation today. If you do have any questions, here's how to reach me, Leslie at GoForthInstitute.com, or my direct line, my direct telephone number is there. But for those of you that are still on the webinar and you want to ask me a question, just type it into chat, and I will hang out for probably another 20 minutes, and we can have a little dialogue. So don't be shy. Great, Tracy, thanks for your comment. Pricing is a really tricky piece of the business model, and pricing is changing all the time. So sometimes we'll set a pricing strategy and then we'll kind of set it and forget it. And I think that can often cause some real struggles in the business, because you need to keep looking around you at what other options do my clients have for purchasing a product or service similar to mine. And those customers are constantly doing a value calculation, so you have to as well. So yeah, so that's great. Keep pricing as one of your top strategies to have a look at. Brenda, that is a really good question, and thank you for asking it. For those of you that, I'll just read it to you quickly. So Brenda's exploring a new business idea, and she's found that there is a competitor offering a very similar service in Regina. So the question, it's a senior's personal assistant, which is so brilliant, Brenda. Thank you for that business idea. I have 2 seniors in my life that, unfortunately, they're on Vancouver Island. Otherwise, I'd set you up as as clients, because that's really what we need in our family at the moment. So Brenda's question is, should I approach that competitor for information? Brenda, it might be a little close geographically for that. It really depends. If somebody feels that you might become a contender, you might become a competitor, there's the potential that they don't share information, or they share misinformation with you. So my suggestion would be to go to a different province. So have a look in Alberta, have a look in Manitoba even, have a look in British Columbia, because they're, the healing arts, and of course, a great segment of the senior population live in British Columbia because of the climate. So have a look there, and my suggestion would be to go a little bit further afield than within Saskatchewan, just because of the potential there of competition. And of course, I wish you great success with that company. Okay, any other questions? Give you Christine, thanks for asking. How long is the promotion valid for? I believe it's to the end of January, but I could be very wrong there. So I would suggest that you have a look at the WES website, because they're in charge of the promotion. So I think it's the end of January, but yeah, it might be a little bit later than that. Typically, it's about a month after the webinar. But we did start the promotion in January, on January 1st. So that's what makes my old mind think that we're finished the end of January, but we can always hold it over. And as a matter of fact, the demand for the last promotion that we did, because of the webinar we did in June last year, we actually held it over because there were so many people that wanted to take advantage of it. So we can confirm that. We'll make sure the date is on the WES website for you. Michelle, thank you for your question. I'm going to read it out just so everybody knows the question that I'm answering. I'm currently leaving my business. I'm sad to hear that, Michelle. I'm currently leaving my business. Is it okay to inform my clients and let them know where I'll be working from? Michelle, are you planning to start another business where you might be attracting those clients? And if that's the case, so I'm not really sure what business you're operating, but let's assume you're a massage therapist and you are leaving your current place of employment. Is it appropriate to let your clients know that you're starting? So the first place you need to look, Michelle, is, did you sign an employment contract? And in that employment contract, is there anything that prevents you from taking customers or non-competing with them? Okay, and in some of the employment contracts out there, you're really restricted. You're restricted to let clients know in other words, you're not allowed to let clients know you're leaving. You're not allowed to compete. So if you have an employment contract, you need to have that reviewed, and that will specify a lot of the rules and regulations around you leaving and telling people and starting up a similar company. If you didn't sign an employment contract, or there's nothing in there that says that is restricting you to talking to clients or to letting them know you're going, absolutely, in a discreet way. You don't want to put a poster up, saying, "Hey, I'm leaving. I'm in this dump and I'm going," no, you can't do that. But in a very discreet way, you can talk to individual clients and say, you know what, I'm going out on my own, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. Would you like me to contact you? And then leave it up to the client to say, yeah, that would be awesome. Okay, so there may not be formal rules around it, but there's sort of an ethical obligation you have to do it discreetly and talk to your clients. There may be formal rules. You don't want to get on the wrong side of a formal employment contract where you were restricted from sharing information or competing or trying to get clients away from your current employer. So just be careful of that. Great. Michelle has no employment contract. Okay, so so just go and discreetly tell your clients that you're leaving, and you would love it I mean, you know, business is based on great service and great products. So, you know, I'm old enough to have a kind of a team of people that I work with in the healing arts. So massage therapy, physiotherapy, you know, we develop wonderful relationships with those practitioners. And if they're leaving, it's really nice to know where they're going. And then if I choose to, I can follow them so that I can continue that kind of continuity of care. So definitely reach out. Lynn asks, Lynn, this is a really good question. It brings up an interesting point, so thanks for asking it. Lynn writes, in a service industry, what do you feel the requirements are to have a great website versus a bad website when there are no actual online purchases being made? So Lynn, you actually bring up an interesting point about what's the difference between product marketing and service marketing. So if you think about it for a second, you'll realize that, products are tangible. I can feel them, I can see them, I can touch them, I can flip them over, I can evaluate them. How do you do that with a service? Right? You can't touch it. They're not tangible, right? Services are intangible. So the website needs to, in my opinion, make the intangible tangible. One of the examples I could use for this is a website that I went to when I was trying to decide, should I cut my long hair shorter? And it was a website where I could upload my photograph and then I could overlay all kinds of different hairstyles. So an intangible service like going to the hairstylist became tangible for me because I could actually see that, oh, no, I should probably keep my hairstyle the way it is for a little bit anyway, because nothing looked quite right for me. So so a website can be, especially with the different technologies available in websites today, it can make your product, make your service a little bit more tangible for people, and that would be the goal for me. And that's where you could get the advice of a website designer to say, look, I want people to actually experience a bit of my service before they purchase. Even though I'm a service, I'm not a product, I'm not tangible. How do we make it tangible on my website? And they'll have some great ideas for how to do that at hopefully a very, very limited cost to you. We'll just wait for Tracy. Tracy, these are all such good questions, gang, so thanks for that. Tracy's asking, would I suggest a website be up and running the day the physical business opens, or can it wait a month? Should they go hand in hand, right off the bat? Gosh, Tracy, I'm going to answer that as a kind of an experienced entrepreneur and say it really depends on your budget. Okay, you can start with simple promotion by Facebook pages. You can get on social media, get on Instagram, get on Twitter. Those are free, and you can start promoting. Websites can be kind of, $1,000 to many thousands of dollars, depending on the involvement of a professional agency to help you. We did our original launch in stages, and I actually started with a really, really simple website, and then as my business grew, I took some of the money and invested in a better website where I hired, real designers, and we built kind of the online empire that is GoForth Institute today. But so it really depends. I think if your budget allows for it, then great. You kind of come on the scene with a great brand. I think branding is probably where I would spend more money than on a website, to be honest with you. The first money I spent marketing was the design of GoForth Institute's brand. So the word GoForth, you know, the type style, the little G that's on the top of it, that was designed by an agency here in Calgary. And so I spent money on my brand before I actually spent money on anything else. And I would suggest that you consider that as well. Branding is very, very good money, and branding is what people remember. So if you don't have a brand, people are more likely to deal with companies, especially small companies that do have a brand. Brands are actually memorable. So I know your question was about websites, and here I am, you know, off on a tangent about branding, but branding is a very, very important part of a business, developing a business identity. So if you're launching, I would say spend the money on a brand, go cheap if you don't have a budget, you know, go into Instagram, go Twitter, go Facebook, get that brand out there so that people are starting to recognize your company through the brand. Once the brand is established and you've got a little bit of cash flow, then of course you can go off into the world of website development, which, you know, which, as I said, can be a very expensive undertaking, and you want to get it right. So yeah, that's how I would go, not knowing the details. Yeah, thanks, Tracy. I appreciate the comment there about branding. Branding is a very, very important part of, you know, kind of coming out into the market. It's one thing to develop a great business name, but it's another thing to have that visual identification there of, you know, of your company, and bring that onto the market so that people really remember the visual mark, the visual brand, and then they typically remember the business name second. So good luck with that. I appreciate the question, Tracy. So we're coming down to the final few minutes, the final home stretch here to my wonderful participants. If yeah, thank you, Brenda. I appreciate the comment. I do appreciate all of you that have taken the time today to join us on the webinar. We really enjoy our relationship with Saskatchewan. We do believe we're friendly neighbors, and we share a lot of our resources to help entrepreneurs in both provinces. So so thank you both. Lynn, I'll just wait for your comment. I know you're typing. Yeah, okay, thank you all. Please remember, if you think of a question that you'd like to ask, don't hesitate to reach out by email. Very approachable. I love emails. So, or pick up the phone and just call me. I'm happy to answer a call. And I will determine when this promotion ends, but do take advantage of it. It's a great way to get access to our training at, you know, half its price. So we'll look forward to all of you signing up for that. Okay, I'm going to end the presentation today, and again, my thanks go out to Women Entrepreneurs of Saskatchewan for everything. And you can read in comments here that that our great friends at Women Entrepreneurs.
Is working yet.
Oh yeah, well, I can hear you, but I'm not sure if you're participant.
All of a sudden, now it works.
Okay, well, I will let you, Jackie, do the final sign off. I'll stop talking, and again, my thanks for today.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, we'd like to say a huge thank you to Dr. Leslie Magoo for taking the time to share her insights into what it takes to build a great small business. We truly appreciate your time and all the information that was given today. And as far as we know, the promotion with GoForth is valid until the end of January. But like Leslie said, if there's lots of intakes, then it'll be to be determined, I guess. So yeah, and I also want to say thank you to everyone that was able to join us as well. Thanks for taking the time in your lunch hour. And stay tuned for our next upcoming webinar, which is Tax Tips for Small Businesses, and that's on January 25th. And our presenter is Roxanne Olenek from M&P. So please check your WE emails or visit our website to register. All right, well, have a great afternoon, everyone, and we'll see you on the next webinar.